Hi guys, welcome back. Today's video will be a painting video. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that Corona commercial, the Christmas one, where there's palm trees and a little house and it has a little whistle. Well, growing up, it was my favorite commercial. So I decided to paint. I'm not a painter, but I decided to give it a go. And I just wanted to run through what I've done already. And then after that, I think I'll just go ahead and let you guys see the progress that I do. So let's get started. So this is the progress that I've done so far. I pretty much started by doing the background. I got like a dollar brush that you can find anywhere pretty much. And I've been using these acrylic paints. I started with the black and the blue one and the white one. So I started by painting like a very dark blue, kind of black, and then kind of transitioning it to lighter ones. And I did the same thing here. I started with kind of like a bluey, and then it went into a white. And then what I went ahead and did was I painted all this solid black. I added a little bit of green here, which you can't probably really tell. And then I went ahead and did these little stems. After that, I did this little house. I painted it white and I added a little bit of black. So if you can see, it looks a little bit gray here, just to, kind of make that illusion of a shadow. And then I noticed that in the little video, it has an additional kind of beach or ocean scene. So what I went ahead and did is with black, I made a little line, and then I started adding a little bit of blue and started transitioning it. And by the way, for brushes, I've actually been using actual makeup brushes. So some of these like little Eco Tool brushes, I actually don't have any painting brushes right now, so I need to go get some. But these have actually been doing really well. And I also made these little kind of brushes out of Q-tips or cotton applicators. And this one is kind of sharp, if you can see. So what I ended up doing was a little line here, started adding a little bit of blue. And then with these brushes, just having them a little bit wet, just kind of dragging that color in a little bit. And then with a little cloth, just wiping off the excess and then making it kind of transition. So if you can see right here, it's like dark and then it goes to lighter to make that illusion of like, a background. And then I added a little bit of mountains and then the moon. So the palm trees have been actually pretty hard to do just because I didn't really know how to do it. So I started off with that same spiky little end of the applicator, and I just went in with black and started doing little kind of tally marks, but then that blended in too much with the black that I have in the background already. So then what I ended up doing was I mixed a little bit of green with black, and as you can see, I just did these kind of like things just so it can pop out a little bit more, and then I mixed that same green with the black and made it darker. And then this is what I've been doing. So from here on out, I'll just be inserting pictures of how the progress has been, and then I'll probably just have you guys see how it goes from here on out. So I hope you enjoy. So with this video too, I wanted to show that you can pretty much use... That's my brother. So with this video, I pretty much just wanted to show that you can use any type of brushes and you can paint. I used to have a set, I think, somewhere long ago, but I don't ever paint really. I really enjoy drawing and I consider myself to be fairly good at it, but painting, I feel that it's something else. So recently, a couple of friends and I decided to go to Hobby Lobby, and while we were there, we decided to pick up a couple of art supplies on a whim, really. And one of my friends ended up gifting me a painting that he did, and since I've been wanting to put something up on my bedroom wall, I thought this would be a really good project just because it went well with the colors that my friend used in his painting. So shout out to Suriel. But what I ended up using here was a couple of old makeup brushes, as I mentioned before, and it ended up working quite nicely. Just as long as you clean them after you use them, they don't end up getting really stiff. I found this project to be quite challenging, not only for the painting aspect of it, but also because of the recording involved. So my phone kept dying and I kept painting without really even realizing it. So there's a few parts of it that you don't really get to see, but it ended up working nicely just because I ended up trimming a lot of the footage to condense it into one small video. And then, just finding good angles and lighting was also a bit of a challenge. But, it ended up being a good project and I'm really happy with the end result. So what I'm doing here is, as I mentioned before, I did the black little lines or scratches and then I went over with some green to make it pop a little bit more. And what you'll see me do in just a second is also going with some white to kind of make that illusion of a little bit of moonshine coming through, or moonlight, I should say. And then I ended up going back with a little bit of green and black to make it not as noticeable. But yeah, so then I also ended up using a bit of green and white to add it onto the bushes to kind of also make it seem as if light were hitting them. And what you don't get to see in a little bit, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter since you won't see it, but is me working on the straw umbrella at the very left of the little kind of beach house or cabin. It ended up being too big once I compared it to the original video. And I ended up making the mountains behind it bigger since it's very difficult to try and blend it back into the original background. So I just added a hint of white to the side of the umbrella to kind of differentiate it from the background. So what I'll be doing in just a second is making the moon slightly larger and adding a little bit of blue and gray to make it look more like the moon. And at this point, what I have yet to do is the reflection of the palm trees and add a little bit of color to the land that's right next to the little cabin, so it doesn't look completely black. And shortly after this clip, my phone ended up dying again. So what you don't get to see is me actually adding the palm tree reflections into the water. I tried looking up a couple of videos to use as a reference for creating water, but I didn't really find any that were helpful, at least for me. So what I ended up doing was adding random black lines to make it seem as if there's motion in the water. And you'll actually see that later on I go back in to fix it just because I didn't really like how it looked. And what I found particularly helpful to do was creating different shades of blue and adding lines little by little. I also ended up using a wet brush to blend it in and create a blurring effect, which I think ended up working quite nicely. I find that the key to this is just being patient and playing around with the colors. I ended up just using those three colors, the black, blue, and white, and just mixing them around and kind of getting hints of gray, light blue, and then just making it darker at the very bottom, going lighter up at the top. And I'll fill you guys in a little bit what else I'm doing. So what I'll be doing in just a second is going over the reflection of the moon, and I'll also be going over the reflection of the palm fronds. I'll be adding a little bit of black to them. What you won't see me do is going over the palm stems. I found the one to the right in particular to be a little bit too wide for my liking, so I ended up just using hints of blue and white to place right next to that black and make it seem not as wide. So here I'm going over the little beach house. I'm adding white and black to make that reflection, letting a little bit of blue pop through. And then I'll also be painting the inside of the windows yellow and adding a little bit of yellow as well to the water. My painting in comparison to the original is quite different. Mine has a lot more motion in the water, and I find that to be okay. I didn't want mine to look exactly like it. I wanted it to have my own little take of it, which I find to be okay. And what I found difficult in this part was creating the reflection of the palm trees that were right on top of the little cabin or the beach house. It's quite difficult just because it's right next to that little piece of land, and I'm not so good at, creating like depth and making it seem very, very realistic, but I tried as best as I could. So here I'm just finishing up all the little lights in the palm tree, and I found this process to be the most difficult in the entire painting, just because I was expecting it to look a different way than it actually turned out. But when I mixed all my colors, they came out looking a bit too pastel for my liking. So what I ended up doing was, as you can see right now, using a wet brush to kind of blur all those colors together to make the palm tree seem like it's lit up. And I actually ended up hating it. So I went back in with black and dark green to make the illusion of leaves again. And then I just mixed my original colors to make them darker, and I went over it again and made all those little dots. So here I'm just adding white to the side of the palm stems to create that illusion of light coming from the moon. I'll also be going over the reflection of the palm tree with the little lights, and I'll be adding all the little colors. All in all, this project took about 2 days, many hours, and many hours editing as well. But I had tons of fun, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, bye.